Yo, welcome to the Cosmic Paradox channel. Like, subscribe, and share.
All right, now episode 5 is pretty gets a little more interesting. It's called 24/7. Now, in this episode, John is making his way to this diner and he has this conversation with this waitress. Now, Dream is still knocked out asleep, or he's just knocked out. He tried to get the ruby, something was different about him, and that's because John altered it. John changed it. Not realizing, though, that this ruby is encased with the power of Dream, right? So, he makes his way to this diner, and he's having this conversation with this waitress. And then we see basically what happens this episode. It's like a social experiment in this diner with these characters. So all of these characters, we look at them like they're what they're called like NPCs. They're basically like just characters, a part of a storyline. They are there to serve the main purpose of displaying a storyline, right? So in this diner, it's kind of like a social experiment with these characters in this diner. So because John is trying, or he's attempting to make a new world, and we are seeing all of this play out directly within his vicinity in this diner. So this social experiment is pretty much about him using the ruby the way he wants to create the world that he believes should be created. World without lies. At least that's how he sees it in his mind. But the ruby is to make dreams to come true, though. They're for the sake of dreams, right? Now, what I didn't catch the first time, when except for when I went back to note as far as doing the breakdown, I caught that the character Judy, who was there looking for her girlfriend, when she first got there and she got on the phone, the person that she was on the phone with was a girl named Rose. Now, mind you, this her name is Rose, just like Rosemary. So let's look at the name of Rose, right? Now, when we're looking at roses, all roses symbolizes God's love at work in the world. But different color of roses symbolize different spiritual concepts. White roses, purity and holiness. Red roses, passion and sacrifice. Yellow roses, wisdom and joy. Pink roses, gratitude and peace, right? So, rose in itself symbolizing God's love work, right? All right, so I didn't catch, and we're gonna put more emphasis on Rose because she's a very vital character that we see later on. But she's the person that's on the phone talking to Judy, and Judy is looking for Donna, her girlfriend, right? Something happened between them, and she's trying to find her, right? So the stage is being set. All right, different people are coming into the diner. It's bringing setting up different dynamics between people, between different relationships. Because remember, John is there. He's now that he's there, he has the ruby. He's wants to start creating this new world. Now remember that John is corrupted, so to speak, right? So he's stained in his perception by lies because he's been lied to his life. So he has a very negative connotation, a very negative. He's consumed a lot, He's been locked up his life, he hasn't been with his mother. His mother's been lying to him. It's a lot of things. So he wants a world without lies. And this is what we see start to play out within this diner as he tours with these people with this ruby. Now, remember the metaphysical meaning behind John, right? Think of John the Baptist. Now, John the Baptist represented the natural man, the physical man. His face is turned toward the light in the measure that he recognizes and pays homage to the higher self within the individual. The intellectual perception of truth by the natural man, which is John, because he's thinking the world just don't need lies anymore. But it's not the true light. The true light, which is in terms of we're looking at John the Baptist, was in terms the Christ, right? So the intellectual perception of truth by the natural man is not the true light, but bears witness to the light and prepares the way for its dawning in consciousness. So this is all metaphysical to that in terms of dream and even in terms of roles as well, right? But look at what happened in the diner. So at first, John is just simply observing. He's simply observing. He's looking at everybody's engagements and conversations and how people are obviously unable to be honest. And he's able to see that because his lens is pretty much colored with it. And he believes that's what's wrong with the world. So you see the disappointment on his face when the husband decided, I'm going to take the salad, even though he obviously wanted the burger. But he chose the salad because his wife wanted him to choose the salad. But it's not what he really wanted. So in his mind, that's a lie. So the way John sees it, oh, you're not being truthful. But it's a little bit more complex than that in terms of how we make decisions, right? And that's what Dream has to reveal to him. So before all that does happen, the waitress bet. So she comes over to him. They start to talk, and she calls him handsome, knowing he's not a handsome man. She's not attracted to him or doesn't find him handsome. And he's like, why would you even say that? Like, and so using the ruby, she's able to be honest. And he asked her after that, he says, he asked her if she wants to live in a better world where people are honest, and she says yes. And he says, well, it starts with us, it starts with you and I. From that moment, he begins to use the ruby. So the conversation, that's the starting point. He said it starts with you and I. So in him using that ruby, that conversation, she was honest with him, and he felt like this was something that was productive. So from here on out, we are now the change. We starting out the change. All right. So from here on, we see the shift now. The conversation between the husband and the wife starts to change. It starts to get very truthful, and so truthful to the point where it's hurtful, right? Where the conversation just turns into hurtfulness. And when the waitress brings the food out, she does bring out the burger instead of the salad. And he does want it. And he decides to keep it. And he wants to eat what he wants for once. It's obvious he's fed up with her in this moment. Right? Now, the girl Judy, who was there because of the fallout with her girlfriend, and there's this other guy, Mark, who's in, and he's there. He's getting ready. He has an interview coming up later, right? And they actually have a harsh exchange after he starts to use the ruby, because she asks him if his phone is working. Can I use your phone? And he's like, she just doesn't want to. She's not texting you back. And it was rude. It was mean, but it was honest. Is what he honestly thought. And that's what is happening with this ruby, right? And she gets ready to walk out of the diner from what he said, but she stops, she pauses, and she cannot walk out. She turns around. The waitress asks her if she wants to keep waiting to see if she hears from Donna, and she does. And the reason why she turns around is because John made her turn around with that ruby, and when she turns around and sits down, he's right there to talk to her, asking her what's wrong. So he has a conversation with her, and it looks like nobody else is there because he's controlling all of this with the ruby. Now, the husband and wife, when they try to leave, they get up to leave, they can't leave either. They turn around and they come back, and it's like a repeat of the same scene. Happy anniversary. Mine is their anniversary, and they sit down and order food. They even start to eat the food again. Now you can hear and notice it's storming outside. It's like a ridiculous storm outside. And even when the weatherman starts to talk about the weather, he's talking about it in a manner where this is an odd occurrence of the weather and what is happening. And it's storming outside because it's an indication of an imbalance. When there's a storm, when we have storms, it's a way for the earth to balance itself out, right? It's the way to balance out pressure and all of those types of things. You hear them talking about high pressure, low pressure, cold front, and all those things. So storms balance all of that out. It balances out the atmosphere. So what John is doing is creating an imbalance. It's beyond him what he's doing, but this is the consequences and this is the effect of what he's doing. Everything starts to go from bad to worse from there. The waitress and the cook Marsh. The whole time she's throwing herself at him, and he's obviously has zero interest in her. And when they start to conversate, because now he's John is watching them. There's no more lies now. He's forcing honesty amongst them, and what comes out is the truthfulness in that he's attracted and actually having a sexual relationship with her 21-year-old son. So he has no interest in her, but he does have an interest in her son. So the cook, so you know, that in itself, it makes her leave. She leaves out, she storms out. Everybody in this is in this emotional turmoil. Everybody is just dealing with all of these raw emotions because they're not tempered by anything. Because this is what he's doing with the Ruby. So the waitress, Bet, and the girl Judy starts to talk. It's like everything just starts to, it just goes from bad to worse. The cook and the husband end up having a sexual encounter. The lady that's interviewing the young guy Mark. Then you have Judy and the waitress. Everybody just starts to make out. It just starts to get really weird. And from there, even from there, everybody goes from making out to everybody turns on each other, and then they kill each other. The only one that's left was the waitress, and he uses her to garner sight, to garner vision from the fate or from the Hecate, from the three who are one, to and it's to see his future. And they tell him that he's going to have a future bound by walls of imprisonment, but he's going to crush the dream lord. And at that same moment, in walks Dream. In walks the dream lord. Now, when Dream asks him, "What is it that you think you're doing?" John says, "I'm saving the world from its lies." And he says the ruby wasn't made for that. And when he says that, John realizes that he's talking to the Sandman. He's like, "Oh, okay, so you the Sandman." So she wasn't lying this time. And he says to give him the ruby so he can heal the damage that he's done. And he doesn't realize that the ruby is hurting him. And Dream has to explain to him what it is that he is truly supposed to see instead of what he is perceiving as lies, because he can't see beyond what he doesn't understand. He's been lied to his whole life. He doesn't know why. He doesn't understand why. All of these things have kind of been forced on him because of who his parents are, unfortunately. And he shows him the world, right? John says it's all lies. And he says, no, these are dreams. Kate, who's the wife, she dreams of running away where no one will find her. Who's the husband, he dreams of proving his father was wrong about him. Bet dreams of creating something that matters to people. Their dreams inspired them. Their dreams kept them alive. But if you rob them of their dreams, if you take away their hope, then yes, this is the truth, which is what John has done. So, what he's been alluding to is that dreams are hope. And hope is almost a supernatural attribute, that it has a connection to dreams, which subconsciously motivates people to make choices in the physical world based on those dreams. So, is it really lies? Because it's dependent upon your perception of how you are able to see it. This is humanity. See, when you take dreams away from people, you take away their hope. That's what happens to people who live in a world where they're hopeless. People who resort to all doing all types of things in the world that people find, to be horrible actions. These are people who have no hope. This is what that breeds when they lack that depth about them. When you rob them of that. And that occurs in a lot of places, in a lot of forms in society, where people are robbed of their dreams. They're robbed of their hope. It's just a perspective of looking at it, you know? So, this is humanity. This is your soul. This is the darkness of the soul, the deep realization, but you don't get to those depths or those truths without going into the darkness. It takes knowledge of the beyond. So John, realizing that the ruby takes power from Dream, wants to take all this power and become the king of dreams. So Dream says, if you wish to rob a dream lord of his power, then you must do it in his realm, in dreams. And he takes him to the dream world, and he places him within his own dream. And it takes him a minute to realize that it's a dream. And when he does realize it's a dream, he is now in Dream's world, in Dream's palace, now at his kingdom. And Dream tells him that it's not your fault. It's not even your fault, man. You were cursed with this ruby. You are cursed by it. And he uses the ruby to do what he thinks. He takes Dream's power, right? He does what they told him. He would crush the Dream Lord. That's what he did. And he ended up crushing the ruby. And by doing so, he actually freed the power from the ruby. So, thinking that he killed Dream, he actually freed him. And Dream thanked him for this. He thanked him for doing so because it's what he needed. Feeling like it wasn't his fault in him doing what he did, he didn't kill him. He didn't kill John. He just simply put him into this dream state, this sleep state, and took him back and put him back into the institution, into that sleep. And although there was a lot of damage that was done, this particular part of his journey is over because he is now back into his top tier form. He's full of his power. He's even more powerful than he was by no longer having his power encased or into that ruby. So now he's off into the distance. He's walking away, and there's somebody that's watching him. And it's one of his siblings because they call him Big Brother. So now he got somebody plotting on him that's one of his own siblings. So all of these things that's occurring has had an outside hand at play, making these things kind of fall as they may to the disadvantage of Dream, which is what we have to see play out in the remaining episodes.